Open us up, Nick.
What's up, RT? How you doing?
Good.
Good.
You're supposed to open the show.
I'm here.
All right.
It's open.
It's
It feels like it's already started.
it has been a lot,
Dude,
and
we
I'm
got
glad some things weren't recorded that you were saying.
We got Josh Sousa back.
Yeah, we told our guest last week that we're having Josh, and I didn't know how to pronounce your last name. That's gonna be
Sousa.
He said
I
salsa.
think I said Sousa. So he's really
Oh, yeah.
excited. He thought maybe you're a baseball player.
Well, listen,
Like,
you know,
he's a little more pale than
my
old
daughter,
Sousa.
she plays basketball for
Yeah.
the CCA school over here.
Yeah.
And the announcer just calls her JoJo Sauce.
Does she like that?
She loves it,
All right,
actually.
she has her nickname. Yeah, that's funny. Well, it's good to have you back on the show.
Yeah,
we'll
good
get
to
to you
be
in a
back.
minute. We got to do our intro.
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
Thanks
yeah.
to Increase Jesus for sponsoring us.
Yep.
Great place to buy a T-shirt.
Don't forget the barn gathering coming up April 25th.
Yeah, April
It's
25th
gonna be exciting.
at the Stringer Farm, Friday night.
Yeah.
Barn gathering.
Friday night.
Going to have a fire, some food.
Hour west of Indy.
Yeah, it's about 35 minutes west of
Okay,
Indy.
sorry. 35 minutes west of Indy.
Yeah,
Get together.
yeah, it's gonna be a blast.
What time are you doing that?
6:30.
At
Really,
night?
like 6:30.
Okay.
What time do you think?
I didn't know.
Yeah, 6:30 at night.
I don't pay attention to your notes. You
But
send me
it's-
notes on what
I'd
we're going
send
to
it
talk
you.
about.
I
and
know.
I
It's
flip right
on
past
the
it.
website, right?
Oh,
There's
okay,
a
good.
website. You go to toughmenoffaith.org,
Yep.
and you can sign up for it.
Good.
And you need to because space is limited.
Yep.
So I have all these people like, hey, I can't wait to be there. It's like, you sign up. They're like, no, it's like, it's going to sell out.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I don't know about sell out, but we can only fit so many people in the barn.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. All you stragglers going to have to sit outside. The cost goes up the night of. Probably.
Does it?
I don't know. We'll figure it
I
out.
don't know. We'll figure it out. But
We're
sign
doing,
up. So
we're
we
doing
can
some
help plan
chili,
for
doing
it.
some food.
We're going to do some food. We're going to work
Okay.
on a life mission statement.
Life mission
Yeah.
statement.
It's going to be a blast.
I can't wait to write mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you bringing any weapons or anything to shoot?
We never know.
Okay.
You know, we're going to the farm.
Yep.
So-
It'll be fun.
Yeah. It's me and RT's squirrel hunting grounds.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
RT's never killed anything there, but
I
I
kill
show him
all
how
the
to do
time.
it.
If some of this, I can't see him. I'm like almost blind in one eye, but
Yeah.
like pretty good shooting with the other eye. But I can't see the squirrels. So when I go squirrel hunting, I just need someone to like point them out.
That makes sense.
Show them to me, I'll kill them. Then Nick will skin them.
It's going to be great.
That's amazing.
All right.
Tacos.
You just don't get much meat from them.
Right. Just enough for one taco.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Josh. You've been
Absolutely.
on before.
Yeah.
Josh runs a ministry, Chi Alpha.
Yep.
I've been able to see it in action. Like last time I had when you talked about it. So I went
Yeah.
down to your campus where you have it, saw it there. You guys been here at the church and saw it here. It's like, it's incredible. Like it was a cold Monday night and it's a holiday. I think it's a holiday as well. The
Yeah,
last time
it was
we had here.
MLK. Yeah.
Yeah. And man, there's just a ton of college students here for a worship night. It was incredible to see.
Yeah, it's
you know,
awesome.
I'm a pastor. So when I looked out there, it looked like 500 or 600.
It definitely wasn't that.
Okay, well, when I was counting, that's what I counted. But there was a lot of people, and just really exciting to see, and this the overall feel, and seeing the students praying with each other, and yeah, it was great, man. Yeah,
No, that's awesome.
You guys are
Good.
doing a tremendous job there.
Thank you.
What, like with your job, like with doing that, your ministry, like what makes you get up every morning?
Oh man, it's a great question. Well, first of all, I'm a morning person, so
Okay.
that's not hard. I just get up. No, but I think the thing I look forward to the most is the way our ministry runs is we do a lot of small group based discipleship. But then we look for anyone in our small group, we look for 3 criteria. Are they faithful, available, and teachable? And if they have those 3 things, then we invite them into one-on-one discipleship to go even deeper. And honestly, the one-on-one discipleship is the thing that I get the most excited about.
Okay, what makes you set those 3 parameters: faithful, available, and teachable?
Because for me, in the years that I've been doing life on life discipleship, I've realized like with faithfulness, we can only go so far if someone's not committed to be there. And so available is like, how present are you in this? And then the teachable, and I think I learned this a little bit into doing this. I think teachability sometimes we think is like, can I challenge you to do something and you don't like fight it? But what I've realized is that that's not really teachability. You can be very passive and still not very obedient.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yep.
sense? So teachability is like, if I challenge you, do you actually follow through?
Right.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in people.
Yeah, that's what. So I've read a few internship programs for ministries, and that teachability is the big thing that I've really changed on, that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's
on those.
huge.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
yeah. Sometimes it's tough to know.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know until you're in it,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. All right, that's exciting. Well, I sent a list of topics to you for season 7. We're looking at like 20 things men should know, and you came right back with this one
Yeah.
on forgiveness. Forgive
Yeah.
like a man. I will say, you came back, and then like 6 other guys came back wanting this topic.
Oh, wow.
So by far, it was the most requested topic. But you got it
Okay.
first.
Okay. Sweet.
And so yeah, so I thought it was interesting that most of the guys I sent it to, they came back like, hey, that's what I think men need to hear. It's what I want to talk about. So
Yeah.
yeah, what for you? Like what
Really?
sparked your? Yeah,
I can't believe so many guys want to talk about forgiveness.
yeah. Well, I think what
I
it's
agree, it's something men need to hear, but
Yeah.
Also a hard one to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, all these guys, and once you're seeing them they're on the podcast. A lot of them have a lot of experience and have worked with a lot of guys, and so I
Yeah.
think that was probably the heart of it. It's like, no, this is what guys need to get. So yeah, for you, like, what was it
Yeah.
that sparked your interest in this?
So, I mean, just kind of long story short, my entire life has been just laid out with probably a lot of things that people would call traumas or whatever, whether it's been abuse or I've walked through a divorce in my life, I've lost loved ones. And so I got to a place in my life where probably in my late 20s, early 30s, I just found myself like, even though I love Jesus, I was just angry. Like I was an angry person. And I got to the point where that anger would come out in the smallest of things. So I've been a dog guy my entire life. And I just remember one day I don't do small dogs. I don't believe in them. But I remember my giant schnauzer came in from having just run around the yard. It was muddy. And before I could even get a towel to wipe his paws, he just jumps on me, gets mud all over my clothes. And I just lose it. And I'm just furious.
Yeah.
And I remember
Then you beat your
after-
dog, and now we don't talk anymore.
I didn't beat my dogs. I mean, I wasn't good. Let's just say that. But I got to a place, I remember looking at my wife, Danny, and I said, why am I so angry? You know, and that was the moment for me where I was like, that's just not who I want to be. I don't want to be that person. And that actually led me into a journey of going into therapy and really starting to deal with all of the stuff that had happened in my childhood and throughout my life. It was 3 intense years of doing that. And it was in that I basically walked away with kind of a principle. It's a personal value I live by. And the value is simply this, that God's laws are descriptions of reality, not motivations for obedience. And what I mean by that is simply this, like when we think about the people that walked on the moon for the first time,
If they did.
if they
Go ahead.
We're about to find out about that, right?
Yeah. I think those files will get released. So go ahead with your illustration. Give me the wiki up. Yep.
That's so, I was not expecting that, but that's fantastic. But when I look at it, it's like, if you start to look at all of the things they had to do and the physics that went into building what they built, right? If your mentality was like, well, this is legalism, I'm not doing this, right? Then it's like, you're going to die. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And it's the fact that like these principles, they're just true. Like, you know, the physics are real. And so when I read of these verses about forgiveness, it's not so much God saying like, hey, if you don't forgive, it's something bad's going to happen to you by me. It's more, if you don't forgive, you can't function in the way I designed you to function because you were designed to not stay a bitter person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great way.
It's like a phrase, you probably heard this before. It's like bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping it kills the other person, right? Yeah. And so it's that concept of I can't be fully the new creation that Christ made me to be if I want to stay stuck in anger and unforgiveness and bitterness. And so forgiveness became the thing that allowed me to just be a functional human being the way I was designed to be.
Yeah. So, and maybe in your life you can answer this or encourage other guys, like, how do you work to forgive? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, it's a process. I think the first thing is I recognize it's okay to feel however I feel. I've stopped getting to a place where it's like, well, I can't feel that way, if that makes sense. Yep. And I don't know, like maybe a lot of guys that listen to the podcast, I was raised in the typical home, like you can't show sadness or weakness, right? I mean, I can remember my grandfather, like I'd fall down, I was 6 years old, skinned my knee, and he's like, I ain't raising no wuss. You know what I mean? And so it was like, you just can't show that. But in life, there are things that are genuinely sad. Like when my stepdad died, it's sad. You know what I mean? And so I've just gotten to a place where it's like, it's okay that I feel the way I feel. I'm not going to feel guilty about that because I can't even control my feelings. They just happen, you know? So that's the first step. then once I acknowledge my feelings, I ask the question, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And what's behind all of that? And then I just take it in prayer and like, Holy Spirit, there's something that probably has to be worked out in me and I need to flesh this out. But the thing I have found is like in reading the Psalms is like David is so comfortable being so transparent with God.
Yeah.
Like he has no problem. Like, God, when are you going to kill these people
Yeah.
for what I've had to deal with, right? And so I'm like, he can handle anything I have to say. And so I've just learned to be very transparent, very vulnerable with the Father. And then through that time, it just, there's a release that happens. And so if I can say this too as a caveat, I think sometimes people think the only way you can prove that you've forgiven someone is if like stuff doesn't resurface later. And I'm like, no, new offenses arise.
Yeah.
You know, there are some people in my life I have to forgive all the time.
Yep.
Right. But it's me.
But if it's not for the same thing over and over again,
Correct.
then you're actually forgiving them.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up the Psalms because I think that's been helpful for me in my life is he's so honest about, hey, life is bad. It's
Yes.
bad. God, where are
Yes.
you at? Are you even here?
Yeah,
Type
absolutely.
of language. And that's what it feels like acknowledging that pain maybe you went through as a child or maybe you went through as an adult and just being honest about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you acknowledge it. You go to prayer. What's your next steps?
And then after that, I just have to walk in the belief that like I'm letting this go. And I sometimes I've read this years ago. There was a neuroscientist that what they discovered in the human brain when they were doing brain scans is there's a part of our brain that lights up only when it hears the sound of our own voice. Okay. And in the testing they did, they discovered that when somebody would wake up and they'd be like, man, I feel tired, that would light up, but then it would tell the brain to start releasing melatonin to make you tired. Right. And then this opposite was true. Man, I feel great. And then it's releasing all these other chemicals that make you feel euphoric. Right. So almost kind of what scripture says is like the power of life and death lies in the tongue. Right.
Yeah.
So what I've realized is there is a power in confessing things out loud so that when stuff starts to resurface, I will say, no, I have chosen by an act of my will to forgive this person.
Yeah.
And I will say that so I can hear it so that I can actually walk it out in truth.
Yeah. Well, I think the enemy, right, wants to bring us back to that, to keep us in the chains of constantly feeling this way.
Yes.
You know, that no, this happened and meditating on that versus the forgiveness and the freedom that comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then to me, like the next thing in my life is like looking to the cross. And when Jesus is able to say, hey, Father, forgive them
Yeah.
with people who are beating them. Right. Like that's our example.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had an idea. Brilliant one. Since like 7 people wanted to come in on this topic,
Yeah.
we should do 7 different interviews on this topic.
On forgiveness.
On forgiveness with each person and get each person's take.
Yeah.
It might be fun.
Yeah.
It might
'Cause-
get boring after week 3.
No, there's so much. Well, even and we haven't dove into that, but even like forgiveness and trust and like how those are separate and what that looks like. 'Cause you guys were talking briefly about you keep forgiving the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can say this, like too, sometimes when you forgive, that doesn't mean the relationship will ever be the same. Right. I came across a quote and it said that you can't don't be so in a hurry to reconcile that you ignore what's real.
Yeah.
In other words, you can't make peace with a lie.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, have I forgiven my abuser from when I was a kid? Yes. Are we looking to be friends? No.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
Forgiveness
not-
doesn't guarantee a restored relationship.
Correct.
And a lot of people, especially the ones that maybe hurt someone, thinks, hey, if you forgive me, we have to be restored.
Right.
And you have to trust me and you have to forget what I did. And if you're forgetting, that's a sign of brain injury or something.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting.
That's right.
For us.
That's
And
right.
It doesn't necessarily mean a restored relationship, nor should all those relationships always be restored.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because sometimes it's not safe to do that.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, forgiving is for you. It's not for them.
Right.
And not restoring a relationship can also be for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can be free,
Yeah.
walk in freedom.
Yeah. But scripture's just full of so many examples of forgiveness. I was thinking about Joseph last night when I was getting ready for this, what his brothers did to him and yet forgave him. And
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Any other thoughts on forgiveness?
Man, I don't know. You asked really good questions to kind of drive stuff.
Yeah, I can keep asking them.
Keep asking them then. I love it.
So a lot of our guys are married that listen to the podcast. What does
Yeah.
forgiveness look like in a marriage?
Man, listen, in my marriage, and I want to say this, Danny and I, we celebrated 14 years just several months ago, and I feel like we have an amazing marriage. Like, and I'm not just saying that. Like, it helps that my wife has her master's in counseling and has had a therapy background, so we just know how to work through some things. But I think it looks like humility. The amount of times in my flesh where I want to be like, no, but this is what you did wrong.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to get to a place where I'm like, I just don't have to do that. I can just be okay with maybe I not heard the way I think I should, or I didn't win that argument. Because the point's not to win. It's to be reconciled and restored, right? And so I realize, like, when I can come with humility and recognize my faults, what I've noticed is she does the same thing. And it's like, how can you be mad at someone that's like, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
And like really owns it. It's like, yeah, we're on the same page. We're good.
Yeah. You ever have to ask your kids for forgiveness?
All the time.
That, for me, was one of the hardest things I ever had to do.
Do I have time to share a quick story?
Let's hear it. Yep.
So, my son's 11, but when he was 4, okay, we were running late to church, like every good family on a Sunday, right? And it's like Sunday morning is the most stressful time ever.
Yep.
And my youngest at that time, she was still in diapers, and I'm going to change her. And as I'm going to change her, she like flails her arms, and then she just wipes, whatever, all over the ottoman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't have time for this. And I say that out loud.
Yeah.
And my wife, because she's so nervous, like I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
She comes flying down the stairs and she goes, what do you need me to do? I'll just take over. Well, how I decided to interpret that is, oh, you don't think I can handle this.
Of course.
Right?
Like every good man would.
And so I'm like, what, you don't think I'm in control right now?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't look like you are. But I remember at that point, then I look at my son and I was like, I had told you to go get in your car seat. And I remember like grabbing him by his arms. I'm like, why won't you listen to me? Right. And I was like, go in the car seat right now. He just starts to cry and he goes and gets in the car seat. And then I walk into the garage to go buckle him in the car seat. And it's the first time I've recognized what his t-shirt says. And his t-shirt says, my dad is my hero.
Oh, man.
And listen,
He was.
I read that.
Yeah.
And literally I had like a Holy Spirit moment.
Yeah.
Where he was like, Josh, there was nothing about your behavior that was heroic. And I felt this like deep urgency that I needed to repent to my kid.
Yeah.
Now I say that before I finish the story, say that I never saw that in my father. Never saw that in my grandfather. I think what I learned in therapy, there's wounds that happened in my life that I think would have been healed had my dad just said, I'm sorry, I did that wrong.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I actually got down on my knees. I got level, eyes to eyes. And I said, listen, the way I behaved is so unlike Christ. Jesus would have never treated you that way. And I fall short of that all the time. And I hope you'll forgive me for messing up this time. And what we have tried to do as best as we can is anytime we are short of what Christ would do in a situation, we try and say, I'm sorry, I missed it. Because I want my kids to know that like I really am deeply trying to be like Jesus and I fail at it all the time. But that is the standard. Like, and that, and if he was here and he was your father, he would have been better than me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's great.
So,
yeah. And I would share kind of on the opposite side of that. Forgiving people isn't something I really struggle with. And as I've kind of spent some time, I was working through with a leadership coach, kind of looking at some things in my past. My dad was quick to ask for forgiveness, which is rare for a man, but he's a godly man. And I remember growing up, like he was far from perfect, Vietnam vet. He had a little bit of temper at times.
Yeah.
But always like quick to ask his kids for forgiveness. And so I think in my life, one of the reasons that I'm able to forgive so quickly is not because I'm great, but it's because my dad was walking with Christ.
Yeah.
Was quick to forgive, ask his kids for forgiveness. So I've seen that example my entire life.
Yeah.
So for me, I walk into adulthood like, isn't this what men are supposed to do?
Man, that's so
Which I was
great
blessed,
that was
right?
your
I know
model.
that is very rare to get that.
Yeah.
But I would encourage our guys, like, you're making a generational impact when that happens, because my kids now are seeing that, hopefully.
Yes.
Because their grandpa, they'd seen it from him, but he did that to his kid. Now hopefully I'm doing that to mine and passing that on down. So
yeah.
I would encourage you, like what you're doing now is like changing future generations.
And that's what I wanted to do, because someone has to break the cycle.
I do, yeah.
Right? So
yeah. And you need to keep that cycle going if it's a good cycle, right?
For sure.
I have the pressure on me, like, hey, I had a great dad who asked for forgiveness. I need to make sure I'm passing that on.
yeah,
So,
that's awesome, Artie. I love that.
Yeah, that's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
We do have a lightning round here at the end. Do you want that?
Love it. Let's do it.
Did we ask you last time who'd play you in a movie?
Maybe.
I don't think we did with you.
I don't.
All right, so who would play you in a movie?
Okay, it's a toss-up, right? So,
Or
like,
who would you want to play you in a
an
movie?
ideal scenario, if I was
Yeah.
in better shape, I'd say Jason Statham, right?
Yeah. We've had a few
I
people
actually see
mention
that.
it.
Okay.
Hey, what are you bench pressing right now? Because aren't you trying to get to like 650 or something?
Not 650. No.
What's
So
your
I was
goal?
actually competing
Yeah.
in powerlifting.
Yeah.
I injured my shoulder, so I've had to take a hiatus.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll ever get back. The shoulder pain has been pretty significant. But my best recorded bench press was 335.
All right.
So it's nothing like that's going to shake records or anything like that.
Hey,
but
the Tough Men of Faith podcast, that's probably the record.
So you're probably there.
I felt good for being able to do that in my 40s.
Yeah.
So I was like, for 40, that's great. But so anyway, so Jason Statham would be great. But realistically, probably Kevin James would play me.
Wow. That's the one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah.
All right,
but
Kevin
that's
James.
realistic, yeah.
A book you'd recommend guys to read?
Oh gosh, I love to read, so there's a lot of books. But if any of your guys have not read early church fathers, one book I came across was called On the Incarnation by Athanasius.
Okay.
And Athanasius was one of the key figures of the Nicene Council.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that fought for the Trinity. And On the Incarnation just talks about, like, a lot of times in ministry, I've really done a lot of sermons and stuff on the cross, on the resurrection, but it's like, but Jesus' life was really important too. And Athanasius spends a lot of time explaining that.
Okay. Who would you like to meet in history? One person.
Besides Jesus?
Besides Jesus, yeah.
Probably John the disciple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
His gospel is my favorite.
Okay.
And I would just love to just pick his brain,
Yeah.
It
would be good. I appreciate you coming on, Nick. I'm proud of you. We made it through the whole episode without you making any Pentecostal jokes today.
Yeah, well, I'm getting better.
Oh, man.
Man, I did think about something. He said his great marriage
well, here we
was
go.
because his wife and her degree
Yeah.
in what, counseling?
Yeah.
And I thought about, that's probably why me and my wife work so well together. She has a degree in child psychology. And I was like, man, how did I miss that? It took, it took
incredible.
like 5 minutes to, for it to come back around. I was like,
That's
oh,
amazing.
no.
Yep.
I love it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you guys watching, listening.
Check out his ministry at IUPY.
Yeah, Chi Alpha, right?
Chi Alpha.
How would they connect with that if they had interest in it?
We have chialphaindy.org is our
Okay.
website. And if they're a young adult or a college student in the city, they can definitely connect with us that way.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Don't forget to check it out. YouTubes, Instagrams,
All that stuff.
all this stuff. All
See
the
you guys
socials.
next week.